You want to know if Marvel Spider-Man 2 is worth it without any spoilers? Well, you've come to the right place. Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a beautifully driven, action-packed adventure full of twists and turns along the way. It has many adversaries and roadblocks that really make you think on your feet. This game is definitely a step up in some aspects in comparison to the first two, and I think it does a great job of being a successor to the first game. In this video, I'm going to be breaking down 3 different sections of the game: gameplay, narrative, and design. And we're going to be talking about how they hold up to the previous games, and also if they do make this game worth buying and playing. First, I've got to talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is the best in the franchise so far. It's an incredible step up from Marvel Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales, and provides a unique and fun experience for the player. One of the things that I think everyone was hesitant about from the gameplay reveal at PlayStation Showcase was that it wouldn't be different enough from the first game. However, I can tell you and confirm you have not seen anything yet if you haven't played this game. With the inclusion of the likes of the parry mechanic, it provides a very fun and unpredictable fighting style from your enemies. This was one of the things that caught me out many times. Bro, I parried, bro. The addition of Peter's mechanical spider arms are also something that I love in this gameplay. I will return for a second opinion on these when we talk more about the story, but in terms of the gameplay, it definitely adds an extra element of spice to Peter's gameplay. If it weren't for the arms, I'm not gonna lie, Peter would be completely useless in this game, especially in comparison to Miles. And that's because Miles has his Venom Blast and Invisibility, and not only that, these abilities take a step up from the first games as well, allowing you to unlock many different variations and strengths of specific powers. This also made for very interesting boss battles. Even though I can't go into much detail as to what bosses were like in this game, I can firmly say that every boss featured was pretty much a level above, if not equal to every single boss that we have seen so far. Basically, Insomniac just took the bosses from the first 2 games and made them 10 times better. They were incredible. Not only were they harder, but they were a lot more interesting as well, making you think as to which gadget or power you'd need to use in order to defeat them in the correct way. But now let's talk about the Traversal. I don't think I really need to say much about the Traversal because it's already been said. Traveling throughout New York in this game is absolutely insane. Even though you can travel so much quicker than the first 2 games, the city does actually sometimes feel overwhelmingly explorable at times, where there is just so much going on. But I think that's a perfect representation of New York City, the city that never sleeps. There is so much life packed into this map that every time you play the game, you feel like you find something new. The web wings are also a fine addition and help you glide through the city when you need to get somewhere quick. Everything about the gameplay mechanics in Traversal have all been improved upon in this game, and personally, I don't feel like I can go back to the other 2 games after playing this one. But with that being said, let's move on to the narrative. So this is probably by far the most interesting part about this video because I have a lot to say about the narrative of this game. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail, but I still have a lot to say. The narrative looks to expand upon what made the first 2 games great. Each character gets their time to shine in this game, and it's done justice in one way or another. However, I do believe that Marvel Spider-Man 2 simply just doesn't hold up to the first. In my opinion, the first game felt more grounded in emotional depth with the heart-wrenching ending of Aunt May's death, whereas this game, although packed with emotional moments throughout, was more of a epic than an emotional Spidey heartthrob. Despite this, the game neatly wraps up most of its narrative threads with ease and gives a satisfying conclusion to things left open from the first 2 games as well. I also think that this game, on the most part, perfectly balances Peter and Miles as well. One worry I had coming into this game that Peter and Miles would kind of feel a little bit disjointed sharing that protagonist role. However, for the most part, as I said, the game handled this really well, apart from one moment in the middle of the story where it kind of felt Miles was a little bit disincluded. But it all wraps up towards the end, and Miles definitely gets his moments that he deserves, and his story does eventually wrap up. My only real problem with the narrative is the tech-based stuff. Now, I know this is a point that has been beaten down like a dead horse, but seriously, this is where it bothered me. This stuff doesn't really bother me. Like, for example, I am an advocate of Peter having tech in Marvel's Spider-Man 1. However, here, it felt a little bit tacky. It almost got to MCU levels of tech. In fact, it probably surpassed that. Like, if you hated Peter having tech in the MCU, it is at that level. I'll go in more detail with this point in my spoiler review, as there are a few things that I can't really mention here. However, revisiting the likes of the Spider-Arms, I felt like the story especially in the beginning, relied too heavily on technology. Explaining away how the spider arms and the web wings were created, along with a bunch of other things, really felt like the game's narrative at points has to rely on some fictional piece of technology to explain a situation away or push the plot forward. And I know we live in the Marvel Universe and these things exist, so if it was to happen once or twice, it would be completely fine. However, it happens constantly and consistently throughout the first half of the game. It got better, however, especially once you receive the symbiote, and the tech stuff kinda takes a back step. On a more positive note though, the villains also receive very good stories, especially Craven the Hunter. Craven in this game is one of those characters where the gameplay makes you work for his backstory. At first, he kind of just seems like a man with an ego bigger than his biceps, but the more that the story goes on, the more that you learn about who he truly is. This pattern of storytelling was an incentive to me as the player to go and uncover and discover more of Craven's backstory and who he is as a person. And I really like that about this game, as it does really make you pay attention to the finer details. All in all, it's a great story with a few things here and there that I don't really like, but once again, I'm going to go into that in my spoiler review, but overall, pretty good story, would recommend checking it out. Now let's move on to the design. All the suits, characters, faces, graphics, and animations are all absolutely insane in this game. There are points in this game where it feels like you're watching a movie, and it's really that good. I know some people have had complaints about some of the graphics in this game, but you've got to think, this map is huge. There are going to be parts of the game that don't look 100% up to scratch, but on the whole, every single cutscene, every single character, every single key moment is shot, lit, and composited in a very beautiful manner. And I know I got very, very pretentious there, but I just had to say it. This game makes the use of the PS5's graphical capabilities, and I can see why they couldn't release it on the PS4. The sound design was also great, and there was nothing to complain about there. Either way, Marvel Spider-Man 2 is a great experience. I definitely recommend giving it a go if you have not already. For me, it's an 8.5 out of 10 for the narrative, and it's a 10 out of 10 for the gameplay, and also a 10 out of 10 for the design as well. So overall, I'd probably say the game's like a 9.5 out of 10. I know that's a very, very high score, and I probably have a lot of recency bias holding over me right now, but if I do decide to change it, I will let you know in my spoiler review. But with that being said, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Take care, and peace.